name is Emily Carter, and I used to think life followed a simple pattern. You grow up, you work hard, you find someone to love, and you build a life together. For years, that's exactly what I thought I was doing. I had a good job as a nurse in Portland, a loving husband named Daniel, and a small but cozy home we had decorated together over the years. Everything seemed steady, predictable, and safe, until the day everything began to fall apart. It started with silence, the kind of silence that grows in a home where love used to live. Daniel had become distant. He spent long hours at work, and when he was home, he barely spoke. I tried asking what was wrong, but his answers were short, guarded. I told myself he was just stressed, but deep down, I knew something was shifting. The laughter that used to fill our evenings was gone, replaced by awkward small talk and heavy pauses. I remember the night clearly, the night I made my first difficult decision. It was raining, and I was sitting on our couch with a cup of tea that had gone cold. Daniel walked in late, soaked from the rain, and when I asked if everything was okay, he sighed, sat across from me, and said, "Emily, I don't know how to say this, but I think we've grown apart." My heart dropped. The room seemed to spin. I didn't say anything for a long time because I couldn't find words. He continued, explaining that he felt lost, that he didn't know who he was anymore. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. He was just empty. I listened as tears filled my eyes. I wanted to fight for us, to beg him to stay, but I could see it. He had already left emotionally long before that conversation. I nodded and whispered, "Maybe we both need time." That was the night Daniel packed a small bag and left. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I went through the motions, work, home, sleep, but nothing felt real. My coworkers noticed the change. My best friend, Megan, tried to cheer me up by inviting me out for dinners or movie nights, but my heart wasn't ready to be light again. Every corner of the house reminded me of Daniel. His favorite mug, the dent in the couch where he used to sit, it was unbearable. Then, about 2 months later, I got a call from the hospital. A car accident had brought in several patients, and one of them was Daniel. I rushed there immediately. When I saw him lying unconscious on that hospital bed, every emotion I had buried came flooding back. Anger, sadness, love, all tangled together. The doctors said he had suffered a head injury but would likely recover with time and therapy. I sat by his bed for hours, holding his hand, whispering that everything would be okay, even though I didn't know what that meant anymore. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel slowly began to recover. But when he finally woke up, something was different, not just physically, but emotionally. He looked at me with confusion, as if trying to remember where I fit in his life. The accident had affected his memory slightly, and the distance that once existed between us now felt like an unbridgeable canyon. Still, I stayed. I helped him through therapy, made sure he ate, and reminded him of small things, the dog we once had, the trips we took, the little bakery he loved. And in that slow, painful process, I found myself healing too. There was something about caring for someone who once broke your heart that forces you to see the depth of your own compassion. It wasn't about rekindling love, it was about rediscovering strength. One afternoon, while I was helping him with his exercises, he looked at me and said, "You're still here, after everything." I smiled softly and said, "You would have done the same for me." But life has a way of testing us even after we think we've passed our trials. One morning, Daniel's sister called me aside and told me that before the accident, he had planned to move to another city, alone. Hearing that broke me again, but I didn't cry this time. Instead, I made another difficult decision. I sat by his bed that evening and told him, "When you're strong enough, you should go. Find what you were looking for. I'll be okay." He was quiet for a long time before whispering, "Emily, I don't deserve your kindness." I smiled through my tears. Maybe not, but I deserve peace. When Daniel eventually left for Seattle to continue his recovery and start over, I didn't stop him. Watching him go was painful, but it was also freeing. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding on to something that no longer fit in my life. I began focusing on myself, taking long walks, painting again, even volunteering at the community center. It was there I met James, a retired firefighter who taught first aid classes. He had a calmness about him, a quiet confidence that came from surviving his own battles. We became friends. He never asked about my past, and I never asked about his. Instead, we talked about ordinary things, the weather, the sound of rain, how small acts of kindness could change a person's day. Over time, I noticed how comfortable I felt around him. It wasn't the thrilling rush of new love, it was peace. Something I hadn't felt in a very long time. One day, while walking by the river after one of our volunteer shifts, James said, "You know, sometimes the hardest decisions lead us right where we're meant to be." I stopped and looked at him, realizing how true those words were. I had spent so much time grieving what I'd lost that I hadn't seen what I'd gained: wisdom, compassion, and a deeper understanding of myself. Months passed, and my life slowly began to bloom again. I redecorated my home, adding brighter colors, filling the walls with my own art. I even adopted a small rescue dog named Milo, whose playful energy filled the empty spaces that once echoed with loneliness. Megan often visited, teasing me about how happy I looked lately. "You've got your glow back," she'd say, and I'd laugh, knowing she was right. Then, one morning, I received a letter from Daniel. He wrote that he was doing better, that he had started working with a youth rehabilitation program, and that he was grateful for the time we had shared. At the end, he wrote, "You were my home, even when I didn't know how to stay." I cried, but not from sadness, from closure. That chapter of my life had finally found its ending. I realized then that love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means letting go with grace. The decision to help him heal, the decision to stay strong, the decision to move forward, all of it had led me here, to a place of quiet contentment. Years later, I would look back and see that everything changed not when Daniel left, but when I chose myself. Life is unpredictable, but it's also generous. It gives you new beginnings when you least expect them. And in every ending, there's a seed of something beautiful waiting to grow, if only you have the courage to make that difficult decision. Now, as I sit on my porch watching the sun dip behind the trees, Milo resting at my feet, I realize that peace isn't something that just appears. It's something you choose, again and again. I chose peace. I chose forgiveness. And because of that, everything changed.